another episode of Fundraising Outside the Box with Karen and Joe. Karen still has top billing, but for the first time, I get to speak first, and I'm so excited for that opportunity.
This is like killing me.
Oh, I know. It's really. I feel like we've graduated. How are you doing tonight, Karen?
I am doing just fabulous. I'm Karen Waldall from Decatur, Alabama, from the New Course Deal Decatur team. And tonight we have a very special guest with us, Dr. LYNNE Elmore. We'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, it's a real pleasure to be here. My name is LYNNE Elmore, and I am the Senior Scientific Director for Extramural Discovery Sciences at the American Cancer Society. So really appreciate it, Joe and Karen, for inviting me to join you.
This is exciting for us, and I have to tell you, without naming names, since the first guest that we had on this series, we have really stepped up the quality of our guests. I don't want to
What
say
if
who
the
the
other
first
guests
guest was,
hear that?
but we are flying. We're really.
You're not supposed to say that, Joe.
I'm
You're
not
hurt
okay.
somebody's feelings.
I'm still learning, broadcast etiquette. But I was thinking about it, and it really is a pleasure to have you tonight. We're excited.
So tonight's a little different episode. We're not actually going to talk about how to do fundraising. We're actually going to talk a little bit about why we fundraise. Most of you probably know there is a fundraising challenge coming up in October. The dates are October 5th through the 14th. You're going to talk a little more about it, Joe, or you?
I think I am going to talk about it. So it's great. In our last session, we kind of, asked everyone to bring, their story to their fundraising to make it, more personable and tell their stories. But I think tonight's going to be great, even though at first you would say, why are we getting into research? Well, research is really where our fundraising ends up. So I think talking about research and where the monies go, and Karen, as you mentioned, this fundraising challenge is going to be, the funds are going to be restricted to research. I think it's going to give our fellow volunteers a great tool to get out there in the field and kind of, turn up their fundraising, not only during this period, but really, for the whole season.
And our goal for that 9-day period is to raise $5 million. And as Joe said, it's all going to be directed toward research. So we have LYNNE on with us tonight to talk a little bit about research and how that money helps the American Cancer Society.
Yes. Well, research, we are thrilled that the monies are going to be restricted for this fall campaign. The American Cancer Society is a unique organization from the research perspective because we have awesome researchers within the walls of the American Cancer Society that conduct wonderful research, particularly related to large population-based studies for prevention and risk. But we also have a big research division that is funded outside of our walls that we call Extramural Discovery Sciences. And that's actually where I'm a scientific director. But in the extramural research department, we have a very broad research portfolio. So we are very interested in all the different types of cancer and really a lot of the cutting edge that is happening. Yeah, so lots of exciting things happening in our portfolio, and I'm happy to provide more details if you.
Yeah, as part of that portfolio, when you say it's extramural, do you provide help or work with other hospitals and organizations in regions to do research? Do you partner up that way? Is that what that means?
Yeah, so what we do is 2 times a year, we have peer review cycles. And so investigators from around the country at eligible institutions, so usually, they're all nonprofit, so in academia, that universities or research institutes, they come to us with their grant applications, with their innovative ideas. And then we have a 2-tier peer review process that we vet these applications to decide which ones are worthy of funding. We look very closely at the investigator, and we look very closely at what the innovative work and the high cancer relevancy that they're proposing. And then we approve these, and then based on the dollars that are raised by our donors and, with, campaigns such as the one this fall, we're able to fund those projects. And so it's this investigator initiated model mostly. And what we love about that is because we leave it to the scientific community to bring us their innovative and creative ideas. And it doesn't have to be just the top breast cancer types or breast cancer and prostate and lung, some of those really big high frequency tumors. It can be anything. because we believe, you can discover things in all types of studies, and we're not sure exactly where that's going to take us.
So how many applicants do you get typically during a year?
Yeah, good question. So we have a cycle 2 times a year. We have it in the fall and the spring, and typically over 650
Wow.
applications. Yes. And we have an extramural discovery scientist. We have 3 research programs, and we say it spans the research continuum, which means we fund studies that are focused on molecules and cells. We have studies that focus on preclinical, so before you put it in the patient, you have to validate it in experimental models. And then we also have a program for clinical cancer research and cancer control and prevention. So we have studies in humans and in populations, in communities. So we have this broad area of all highly cancer relevant studies, and we fund those, but based on what our reviewers at these 2-tier of rigorous peer review decide. It's not the directors and the staff who are deciding, it's the experts and the peers around the country at the cancer centers and some of the leading institutions.
Of those hundreds, how many get through? How many actually get funded?
Yeah, our pay line varies a little bit depending on the type of grant.
Depend on how much people raise during the year, I would assume.
Exactly. So our pay line, so that's sort of the success rate, is typically around 10% for all of our grant mechanisms. Some of them are a little bit higher. We have a aspect of our funding model called a pay if. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So we approve so many grants for funding, and if we get enough funding, we'll fund those. Those that don't get funded get put into this pay if pool. And it's a strictly donor driven activity. So if it's a particular year that a lot of donors and fundraising events and things, come to fruition, and they pick up some of these other pay if grants. So that can sometimes elevate our pay lines. But typically, the low double digit is what the pay line is. It's a highly competitive pool. The ones that are funded with the American Cancer Society Award, these are highly regarded reward and grants and awards for these individuals.
That's great. I typically understand all of this. I appreciate you kind of simplifying things for Karen a little bit. Sometimes she doesn't pick up some of the nuances the way I do. So we appreciate that. One of my favorite things when I'm fundraising is I love to go to the ACS site that lists the current grants that ACS is funding. So I think that's an excellent source for the volunteer to not only find out how much the grants are in particular areas, but I think you can also figure out by region what grants are have been given out in your region. So I really think it's a way for a volunteer to take sort of this broader concept and bring it back to their localities and show how the work they're doing is making a difference right at home, so to speak.
For sure. And I think if you do go to the website and look at some of those titles and the highlights that we showcase on cancer.org, you'll see that breadth of the portfolio. Some of it's all different types of cancers. Sometimes it's technology based. Sometimes it's very fundamental in its focus, something that might be a big breakthrough that may have an impact with lots of cancer cell types. And sometimes it's something really close, a targeted therapy for a specific type of cancer. So there's lots of different things, lots of exciting, innovative projects being currently funded in our portfolio.
So, we said before, over the 9 days, we're hoping to raise $5 million. What is the average?
Wonderful.
What is the average cost of a grant or the payout for a grant? And so how many grants would we expect this $5 million to cover?
Yeah, good question. So we have a number of grant mechanisms, and they vary greatly in what the award amount is. The Research Scholar Grant is our career launching grant that is typically 4 years long, and that costs about $800,000, so $792,000. So that will be personnel, reagents, animals, core facilities for an individual and their team, so a principal investigator and their team members for 4 years to conduct the study that they propose. Now that's one of the higher price points, but we do have then postdoctoral fellows These are individuals that have just finished their graduate work, and they have this important time of training to prepare them for whatever next, whether they're going to go into industry or often stay in academia as an assistant professor. So these training awards, this is typically 3 years, and that's about $175,000. This is an award that goes mostly to stipend support. So you're paying the salary, if you will, of this fellow, and they are being mentored in a laboratory by a more senior individual or a senior team that has another grant that's going to pay for the reagents and if there's animals and microscopy and all the different things that maybe some of the medicinal chemistry, whatever the project is. So those are sort of, so 175,000 for a postdoctoral fellowship. We also have a clinician scientist development grant, and this is for a junior faculty member that is a practicing clinician that wants to also conduct cancer research and wants to establish an independent research program. This grant can be up to 5 years, and that's about $729,000.
So it sounds like, I guess,
so
sort of in the short term, that a lot of what's going on right now may not have been affected by, the atmosphere over the last year and a half. So, but I would imagine that with fundraising, being down so much because of COVID, are we worried that, the future of research might be affected? In other words, it sounds like a cycle. Is there some fear that we're not going to be able to fund the next 4 years of grants? Not so much, again, worrying about the ones that are already in play.
Yeah, well, the worry has been with how COVID has really undermined some of the current research projects ongoing, and how it's really made it very difficult for many of the early stage investigators. And we tend to focus on those early stage investigators. But we had to make some, actions this past year and a half. We had to limit in the spring of 2020 the number of grants we even reviewed, because we didn't want to, review and have our volunteers go through stacks and stacks of grants, and also to have an applicant have one of their submissions be taken if we didn't have money to fund it. And then actually last fall, we totally canceled the cycle. We did that because we wanted to make sure we would come out strong out of the blocks this year. And that's what we are doing. And actually with our fundraising last year, there was a campaign that raised quite a bit of money for research. And I mentioned about that pay-if pool. We were able to move several of those those applicants out of that pay-if pool because we sort of sat out a cycle and a half. But now we're back to business as usual. We had a really strong cycle this spring. We're accepting applications in October, and we're really excited about the budget we have and the exciting science that we're going to fund. But it's dependent on continuing to have, enthusiasm in the field and with volunteers, and to really value and appreciate the power of research and what it does to help, patients in providing better biomarkers and better treatments and better intervention strategies, whether it is to prevent or to treat or to survive cancer.
Well, that's definitely, that drives, we're a big relay team, and that is absolutely what drives us. Being able to hear about research that's taking place and advances that are being made is really what pushes us to go forward. So,
and it is really, it's such an exciting time in cancer research right now, because we really are understanding so much of the basic science research and the mechanisms that drive cancer. So now we're identifying these targets that we can actually selectively kill cancer cells without causing damage to normal cells. For years, it was, toxic chemotherapies and radiotherapies, and that's what you had. And it killed rapidly growing cells, cancer, but also rapidly dividing normal cells. And now that we know what some of these drivers of the tumors are, we can be very creative to very selectively target and kill the cancer cells. And so it's just a really exciting time in cancer research, for treatments, for preventions, for screening, genetic screenings, so. But it's reliant on research.
Yeah.
Lots of answers still.
As a fundraiser, we want these flags to wave, and it's great to know, when we say, the fight doesn't stop, it's great to know that all these, these breakthroughs in research are continuing, and these efforts are continuing, because again, volunteers, we need the flag to wave. We need the call to action, and what better call to action than research.
Yeah, it always fascinates me when we, hear researchers talk about, about drugs and therapies that changed the world and funded by the American Cancer Society. And you look back on it and think we saved lives because of the fundraising we did. And that's what, that's what's truly powerful here. So what are those dates again, Joe, that we're doing this fundraising challenge?
We're looking at the full fundraising challenge, October 5th to the, I don't know, I highlighted in yellow when it's nighttime here in New York, so I can't see anything. The yellow is absolutely ineffective. Next time I'll highlight.
The dates are October 5th through October 14th.
October 5th through the 14th, from what I understand, there's going to be some materials made available that most of our volunteers who are, haven't blocked the ACS emails will get access to materials that they can share not only with their events, but with their donors and with their ELTs and everybody out there. So a whole bunch of stuff coming down the line. Once the challenge takes place, again, we'll get a couple of reminders. But I think the most effective promotion for this full fundraising challenge is going to be this broadcast tonight, Karen. When are we airing this?
Oh, I'm sure of it. I don't think we set a date.
To look for it, but we're going to, as always, we'll broadcast this on our Facebook page, and then it goes into, the Smithsonian on our YouTube page, and, where it stays there forever and everybody can have access to it. But something very exciting. Again, it's great to know that, the power is back, and just excited to see people get out there and fundraise for a purpose again.
Absolutely.
So appreciative.
The other thing, and we have to mention it, Joe, because I know this is what drives you, is during that 9-day challenge, Relay for Life and Making Strides Against Breast Cancer fundraising will earn 2 times the points.
No, are you serious?
I would never lie about points, Joe. Never.
That is unbelievable. And that goes, this is not just a relay fundraising challenge. This is going to be a joint Relay and Making Strides Against Breast Cancer challenge. That means that both volunteer sets can earn 2 times. You're telling me 2 times?
I'm telling you 2 times. That means like if you earn 10, you get 20 points.
That means we're all that much closer to that Relay branded pencil eraser. I can't wait. I can't wait to load up for the school year.
Yeah, we joke, but we do it for the mission of the American Cancer Society, and we appreciate. Lynn, is there anything else you want to share with us? Anything exciting or fun?
Well, I just want to thank you all and thank everyone who's behind the scenes and shoring up interest and funds to support the research, because cancer is a really complicated disease. We've moved the needle in a lot of areas. There's still several types of cancers that we aren't able to screen for, we can't treat effectively, and there's just lots of knowledge gaps as well as research opportunities. And we're positioned, we have a reputation for funding really good, impactful research, and we always have more applications that come in that get approved for funding than can be funded. And so, you all's efforts are just so appreciative and so instrumental to the success and moving our mission forward. So we thank you.
Looks like great stuff. And Lynn, I'm just going to put you on the spot one more time before we go. I told you I was more brilliant than Karen, then she was just more successful. Was that a fair assessment? What do you think?
It's probably true.
Yes, I get it. You put me on the spot. I'm equally impressed with you both.
There we go. There we go. And that's, and we always like to end on that high note with a compliment to both of us. So again, Lynn, thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight and showing us that the power of the dollar that we earn really is making a difference, not only today, but more importantly, it's going to make a difference in the future.
And let's do that 5 million in the 9 days. Let's get some of those pay ifs. Is that what you called them?
Yes, those are some that get approved.
Let's get some of those pay ifs out of that bucket and get them funded.
How did they choose 5 million in 9 days and not like 9 million in 9 days? Usually it's like 24 and 24 hours. It's really throwing me off. Anyway, We'll do better than that. That's just the goal. So everybody, again, get out there, fundraise, and wave that flag, research. Avail yourself of the information on the site about the grants that ACS partakes in. It is invaluable information that not only, again, gives you information about specific types of cancer, but also about the institutions that ACS is working with in each of your regions. So again, it's bringing your dollars home. So again, Lynn, thank you. Karen, wonderful as always.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see everybody next time on Fundraising Outside the Box with Joe and Karen.
Yeah.